Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio.
Now let's cross live right now to Dover, to the White Cliffs of Dover, no less, to find a former head of the Brexit Party, former leader of the Brexit Party, now intrepid reporter in the southern part of England, Mr. Nigel Farage. Nigel, very good morning to you. Very good morning to you, Nigel.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Can I just first of all start by saying what a fantastic job you've been doing, showing up the mainstream media for what they are, absolutely reporting the truth from where you've been, all over the south coast, from Pett to Hastings to now Dover, to see the police coming to your door to warn you off, to see the French Navy now complicit in what's been going on. Tell us what's happening today.
So today is another very busy day. Already, five migrant boats have been discovered in the channel and brought in behind me here by our border force, or should I say, Mike, the illegal migrant taxi service.
Yes,
that's what they've now become. Virtually everybody now that comes into this country, and bear in mind it's over 1,000 since lockdown began, so there's kind of an invasion going on down here. Virtually everybody that comes is allowed to stay. It's as if on the White Cliffs of Dover here there's a great big sign saying illegals welcome. I've been on this campaign really full time for the last 3 weeks because I want people to know and understand the truth. And your comments about mainstream media, do you know national BBC and national ITV simply refuse to cover this story? It's astonishing. It's not as if it's not of public interest. I mean, goodness me, I put up last night a short 1:45 video on Facebook. Over 2 million people have viewed that already, and it's rising with every minute. And when you think about it, the one thing yesterday that I discovered, when you really think this through, we have given the French tens of millions of pounds to stop the boats from coming, right? What we witnessed yesterday, what we filmed yesterday, was a French naval vessel escorting a small inflatable dinghy full of illegal migrants. We watched them escorted out of French waters into British waters, and then to hand the boat over, literally, to the British border force. And this is going on almost every single day, and the attempt to stop us filming it was astonishing. The French Navy threatened us and said if we stayed in French waters they would board us, and no doubt that would have meant a night in the Nick in Boulogne. I didn't fancy that because I'm told the food's not too good. And then we had UK Coast Guard threatening the skipper of our vessel that if we filmed the incident, because they knew we had a camera on board. If they filmed the incident, when his boat got back here, he could be prevented from working. So you've got both the French and British authorities complicit in this illegal trade and not wanting us to know the truth. And I don't care how many times the police knock on my door, something's got to happen here. If Priti Patel doesn't act, there'll be many thousands that cross the channel over the course of this summer, and inevitably there will be many deaths too. And Mike, do you know something? These people that come, and we found a boat yesterday with 22 on, where they were sort of chanting England, and big thumbs up, and great. They all think they're coming to a land of milk and honey. Many of them, to pay off the fare they've paid to cross the channel, will effectively live in slavery for the next several years. We should be ashamed of ourselves at every level. So I won't stop until this stops.
No, you're absolutely right, because it's not just about stopping people coming to this country, which some on the left will say you're doing, because it's not about that. What it is about is making sure that these ghastly human traffickers are not profiting from the movement of people from Europe to here. I'm looking at a picture on the front page of the Times today because they've picked up, thankfully, your story. And the picture shows a collection of very healthy looking people, very well fed looking people, women, children, men as well, all with their thumbs up. They all look as if they know where they're coming to and what they're coming here to do. The bottom line, I suppose, Nigel, is what happens to them when they do land on the shore?
Just quickly, Mike, that photograph was taken by somebody who was with me. I was on the boat that discovered that boat. We found it at 8:10 yesterday morning in the shipping lanes. There were 22 people on that vessel, which is about sort of 14, 16 foot long. It was so overloaded, they were bailing water out of the back. Yeah. And we actually contemplated taking them on board our fishing boat because they really were in trouble. As it was, Border Force came and got them at about 8:30 yesterday morning. When I wrote to the Home Office yesterday and asked for a list of all the interceptions and all the people that have been brought into Dover yesterday, they showed nothing from 4:50 a.m. until 2:05 in the afternoon. I was there. I saw those 22 people. I saw the Border Force pick them up, and the Home Office haven't even put them in their figures. And my suspicion, Mike, is we're being lied to. You know, last Saturday, they said 90 migrants had come. They didn't even count the 25 that had landed on the beach at Pett in East Sussex. So very important to understand, we're not getting the truth. All right, now, onto your question, where do they go? There are some that come, who come from Iran, who come from very wealthy families, and who, to be fair, are fleeing an absolutely barbarous Islamist extreme regime. They come, many of them have got money anyway, plenty of money, many of them have got family here. Many others that come finish up working in illegal car washes, finish up working in the agriculture sector, finish up in drugs gangs, finish up basically, you get the criminal traffickers, bring them in, and then they're in the hands of the gang masters in our country. You know, the other day, about 5 weeks ago in Pett, 27 men landed on a beach and disappeared into the countryside. You know, they weren't going to go and live rough on the streets of London. They were being picked up by gang masters. It's modern day slavery in many cases, and yet the people in Islington seem to think it's all wonderful.
Oh, exactly right. I mean, I was getting tweeted at this morning by people saying, these are the people that help you and make you recover when you go to the NHS. These are the people who are looking after you in your old age. Well, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. Also, I know a little bit about Sussex. You know, I've got a place not far from Hastings, and there are reports that I hear from time to time, just from local people, that they were walking in the woods the other day, and there was 3 or 4 people living in a tent in the woods. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with this, but it could well have.
Well, it could well have. I mean, we don't know the answers to all of this. I can tell you one of the next parts of my investigation is I do intend to find out where all these people finish up, where they all go. I heard of a village in Norfolk, small village in Norfolk, that 3 weeks ago had 100 new non-English-speaking migrants just parked in their village. I do intend to try and find out where the dispersal is. But for the moment, the priority is to stop what is going to be a summer invasion. And Priti Patel, who was talked tougher than any previous Home Secretary, she says that firstly she says, thank you to the French, aren't you wonderful? No, the French are, as I witnessed yesterday, actually escorting migrant boats here. Secondly, she says, when we properly leave the EU, namely we leave the rule book, she'll put in place new legislation. 2 problems with that. Number one, Boris Johnson has never been tough on this issue. Boris Johnson twice advocated amnesties for illegal immigrants whilst he was Mayor of London, so she may find it hard to get the legislation through, in which case this will go on for years. Secondly, if she does get legislation through, that means it's easier for us from the 1st of January to return anybody crossing the channel illegally. If she does get that through, that will lead for the next 7 or 8 months to something on a scale that is unimaginable. Either way, it needs to stop now. And there is an historical example of how you deal with this. Australian called Tony Abbott, good friend of mine, great man, Australian Prime Minister. They faced the same problem, Mike. There were boats coming into Australia. Now, they were bigger boats, coming longer distances with more people, but the principle is exactly the same. What Tony Abbott said is anyone that sets foot in Australia via this route will not be allowed to stay. And do you know what happened? The boats stopped coming. And if Priti Patel says to the French Navy and the French equivalent of the Border Force, I'm sorry, we're not putting up with this. The next rib we find in British waters, which we can track has come from Calais, we are taking straight back to Calais. And yeah, sure, it might get a bit rough and tough. The migrants don't want to be in France, they want to be here. But if she does that, not only will it massively reduce the problem in our country, it'll stop many people going into the camps in Calais. So actually, it'd be a win-win. But you have to have the collective will to be strong. And I'm afraid we have a mainstream media, we have a parliament full of very, very weak, soft-minded people who cannot see that by saying, oh, let's be generous, let's be nice, actually, they're preying into criminality and slavery.
Exactly right, because we need to keep the traffickers out of this country, and it's a bit like keeping criminals out of your house, isn't it, Nigel? If you leave the front door open, somebody's going to come in and nick all your stuff. If you lock it, they're going to go on to the next house, and that's what we want to encourage them to do, because let's face it, if these people, and you're quite right to point out some of them fleeing barbaric, horrible, ghastly dictatorships and terrible situations in the countries from which they come, but there's no reason why they couldn't stop in France and live there, is there?
That's right, and equally, if people, people from Iran who had been persecuted, who had members of their own family executed for political opposition, I mean, say there were people from Iran applying for refugee status in France, we may well accept some. It's not as if we're ungenerous. I mean, crikey, Jewish people, Huguenots, many people fleeing genuine oppression. And think about even Priti Patel's family, who came from Uganda when that nutcase Amin threatened to kill them all. Always been very fair-minded, and so many of those groups who came in as refugees have prospered, integrated, done brilliantly. This is not being closed-minded, it's not being nasty, it's wanting to do things legally and wanting to do things properly. And Mike, can I just leave you with a thought?
Yes.
That one of the arguments, the Sunday Times sneered at me the other week, it's okay, I'm used to it, but they sneered at me saying, Nigel Farage doesn't understand that we now love all migrants because so many of them are working as care workers, nurses and doctors. All right. And that needs dealing with as an argument. Of course, there are many fantastic nurses, carers that come here from all over the world. But just think about this. You know, if you have a nurse working in your local hospital that comes from Mali, she may be brilliant, but maybe Mali needs her and her professionalism and her expertise even more than we do. We're dragging in medical staff from countries who probably need them even more than we do. And I think in the long term, the 40% of British doctors in hospitals to be foreign born, I've got an idea. Let's start training some of our own nurses and doctors. It'd be better for our young people to train in those professions, and better for many of those poor countries from whom we're taking some of their best medical staff. And that needs a proper debate.
Absolutely right. And as Boris Johnson has said, we need to hire 50,000 more nurses. So let's pay them some more money. Let's hire people in this country, and let's get the economy moving faster than we could ever have done before this whole coronavirus hit. But isn't it ironic as well, Nigel, that during a period of time up until very recently, when we weren't allowed on our own beaches, the only people who were on them were the people arriving from France?
Well, that's right. You know, you couldn't get a P&O ferry into the port. But if you nicked a dinghy and came across, you'd be happy as Larry.
Absolutely. Now, how much are you expecting to do today? Are you going to be reporting in later on as far as your Twitter account is concerned? We'll be keeping an eye on it.
Oh, yes. Well, as I say, it looks to me we've had 5 boats in already this morning. That may be the end of it, although we have seen some daytime launches. They've actually been launching in broad daylight from French beaches. Where are the French police? I ask myself. There could be some more today, but my main focus today is to get back to the Home Office and to re-ask them the question: how long have you been accepting the process of handover from the French Navy? Answers on a postcard, please. And number 2, why did you lie to me yesterday when you told me about the number of migrants and boats that had come into Dover when I was actually on the vessel that discovered a migrant boat with 22 people, and we put the alarm call out at 11 minutes past 8 yesterday morning? Why is that not in the figures? That's my job. I'm Home Office bashing today, Mike. That's my job. Fantastic work. Nigel, thank you once again for what you're doing. We're behind you all the way here at the Independent Republic, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Nigel Farage, what a sterling job he is doing down in Dover, watching the seas, watching the French Navy escorting boats into British waters, as he says, the migrant taxi service being operated by the Home Office in this country. Priti Patel needs to answer to this. Priti Patel needs to get a grip of it, and Priti Patel needs to come on this show and talk to me about what she's going to do to stop this madness. This is Talk Radio.